Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's June 24th. It's Friday. We have 15 baseball games tonight. We have a Coors Field game. We have a Yankee Stadium game. We have a Texas game. We have a lot of baseball, so why not bring in a champ? How you doing, Pepsi?
I am doing fantastic. Pretty excited about this slate and ready to dive in, my man.
I can call you a champ, right?
You can, yes, sir. I did win one tournament once, at least, yeah.
You know who's not a champ? The Orlando Magic. I know you're not a big basketball person, but I am on full tilt because of this Orlando Magic trade. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but as a Magic fan that goes to a bunch of Magic games, I'm really disappointed in this trade.
You know who's not disappointed is the city of Cleveland right now.
Yeah, the city of Cleveland is very, very happy.
That was the first basketball game I actually watched from beginning to end, and that was very exciting. I was cheering for Cleveland just because I felt like not a whole lot to cheer for Cleveland for a lot of years in any sport, really. So was happy to see them bring it home.
Well, you definitely watched a good basketball game. That was a great game. Results, whatever the results were, it was going to be a good game regardless, and it was just a good basketball game. Before we get into the slate here, as the start of the show mentioned, we're presented by FantasyDraft.com. Make sure you guys check out Fantasy Draft. They have a $10,000 home run tonight. Only 454 people in this $25 tournament, and it's a max entry of 10 people. So you're not playing against 200 teams. If you feel like you're not getting an edge because you're playing against a bunch of teams, check out Fantasy Draft. Use promo code GRINDERS. That way you get incentives here at Roto Grinders for free for a year for Fantasy Draft, and you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. We're going to talk some Fantasy Draft. We're going to talk some FanDuel. We're going to talk baseball. We're going to start it here. Minnesota at New York. Tanaka against Tommy Milone. Now, Tanaka's a guy that it seems like he's starting to decline. Is this a matchup that you want to play Tanaka or you want to stay away from him?
Well, it's funny. I think that in Tanaka's case, I think he's fairly safe, reasonably priced across industry, makes a good number 2 at least, if not a number 1. But we're worried about the strikeouts here. This is a guy who used to be a strikeout artist. He's facing a Twins team that's below average against right-handed pitching. They also strike out at an above-average clip, so the matchup is great, but where have the strikeouts gone? And with a guy averaging 4 or 5 strikeouts per game over the last 5 or 6 games here, I don't know that I want to pay his price tonight, even though I think he's a fairly safe option in cash games.
Yeah, only twice out of the last 10 games he's had over 7 strikeouts. Technically, over 5 strikeouts. He had 2 games with 7. So 8 out of the last 10, the strikeouts really haven't been there. Even when he wins, he's really not giving you that 50-point, upside. As a guy that's 9,500, when your ceiling over the last 10 games is 48 fantasy points, that makes it tough.
Yeah, I agree, which is probably why I won't have a whole lot of exposure to him again. I can see it. We've got a few aces on the board tonight. We've got a few moderately priced pitchers to roll with. If you're on a site like FanDuel where you're only rolling out one pitcher and you need the extra room to go to Coors Field to get some bats, I don't hate the idea. I think the Yankees win, and I think he can go 7 or 8 with 5 or 6 strikeouts. But he's still fairly expensive. And again, the same idea for as a number 2 starter somewhere. Depending on the site you're playing on, if he's somewhat reasonably priced, he's a few thousand less than a Scherzer or something like that, I can see some merit to dropping down to add some bats.
Now, looking at the other side of things here, Tommy Milone, 4 or 5 starts earlier this season, 40% hard contact rate in 23.1 innings, and a 1.93 home run per 9. He really struggled, got sent down to AAA. He's back up because, hey, let's face it, Pat Dean stinks and Tommy Milone stinks. The problem is, where do we pick on Tommy Milone here with the Yankees lineup?
Yeah, Tommy Milone is slightly better than Pat Dean, which isn't saying a whole lot about him. Just a below-average pitcher throughout his whole career here. It's tough with the Yankees. So the Yankees aren't really hitting the ball real well right now. The lefties especially aren't hitting lefties. So, we can go with Carlos Beltran, who's hitting the ball pretty well this year. Has already got, 16 home runs, tied his entire season last year already. So he's a good spot here. Starlin Castro, I think you can go there as well. It's tough with these Yankees. Maybe if Aaron Hicks gets a spot in the lineup, but the Yankee righties are where we want to go here. But it's tough to love them today, despite a decent matchup versus a fly ball homer-prone pitcher here.
Yeah, the one guy that I'm hoping gets in the lineup is Austin Romine. On a site that you have to play a catcher, if he's in there, gets the splits advantage. It is Yankee Stadium. He's facing a bad lefty. He would be one guy that I would definitely want to look at. A-Rod, maybe some upside here?
Yeah, I thought about A-Rod as well. I guess against the guy that doesn't strike out a lot of people, he allows a lot of contact, as you mentioned earlier, for 40%. So that's the situation which we can use A-Rod. Obviously, the bat speed's gone down a little bit, but the power's still there. So against the soft tossing lefty, A-Rod's in play. I don't have to go after him in cash, but if you decide to mini stack the Yankees, I guess you'd certainly want Beltran and A-Rod together.
15-game slate, Minnesota here against Tanaka. Anybody you're going to pick on?
Not really. I mean, this Twins team's underachieved all season long, and again, they strike out quite a bit versus righties. I just don't see the upside going anywhere. And again, you'd be guessing. Brian Dozier's a guy that's always in play for me because he's got jack in a bag upside there. But yeah, I don't think I would rostering any Twins in any format tonight.
The only guy, I'm going to keep saying his name, Max Kepler. I continue to play this guy. He continues to be underpriced on just about every site except for FanDuel. So Kepler would be the one guy that I would look at here. He's 5,400 on draft, and I keep playing him because he keeps hitting. And until he stops hitting, I'm going to keep playing the young outfielder.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense.
Tampa at Baltimore. This is an interesting baseball game. Matt Moore, Giovanni Gallardo. Don't want the pitchers here, right?
No, I don't think I'm interested in Gallardo or Moore at all as far as Roston goes. Taking some hitters against him? Sure.
Yeah, let's talk bats in this game. I don't like either one of these guys. This is a good hitter's ballpark. Matt Moore getting a downgraded ballpark shift here, but the batters are getting an upgrade. Let's talk Tampa bats. Who do you have here that you like?
No, I'm not in love with the Tampa bats, to be honest. Gallardo's not a guy that I have to pick on. You mentioned it's a great ballpark. There's a couple of lefty bats that have some decent upside. Logan Morrison comes to mind, Brad Miller, and of course Corey Dickerson is a big fan favorite. I'm a big fan of him and that multi-homer upside that he has, even though he's been struggling and batting lower in the lineup. I think those three lefties are in play as a one-off. I don't hate it, I guess, as a mini stack, but Gallardo's the kind of guy that just rarely seems to get beat up that much. So I'm not really looking to attack him too much tonight.
Yeah, it's just not a spot, on a site that you have to play shortstops like FanDuel. Maybe you look at Brad Miller, but then you're kind of getting away from maybe a guy like Trevor Story at Coors in a great matchup. So I just don't know if this is the spot that I'm going to target Miller. The one guy that I would play here, like you said, is Dickerson. I want a little bit of upside, and I feel like he's the guy that can give me the upside for tournaments. Nothing really stands out to me here for Tampa.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you there. On the Orioles side, there's a lot to like. I mean, Matt Moore, kind of shows 3 or 4 bad starts mixed in with a gem here and there, but really struggled versus righties this season with the long ball. And this is not the team or the ballpark to be struggling versus righties with the long ball here. So, guys like Adam Jones, Mark Trumbo, Manny Machado should make his return, Jonathan Scope. All these guys have multi-homer upside in our play tonight. I like the Orioles in cash, and I think they're one of the top teams outside of Coors to stack with.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Joey Rickard, a guy that he's always under-owned, and he continues to be a guy that hits left-handed pitching. He's under 3K on FanDuel. I think he's a guy that we could definitely look at in cash games because I think he'll be up towards the top of the order here.
Yeah, likely going to hit second behind Adam Jones there, and a guy that's unlikely to hit a home run or even multi-homer, obviously, but he can certainly put together 2 or 3 hits, score a couple runs, and his cheap price across the industry makes a nice addition to a stack. Considering more often than not, you can't afford to do all of Jones, Trumbull, Machado, so sometimes you got to sneak in some value there, and Rickard simply brings that to the table.
Any other bats that you want to mention before we move on? I think we're both in agreement here. Baltimore, a good team to look at.
I think that Matt Wieters is interesting as well. He's been hitting the ball a little bit better. Not a guy that I love. His price has kind of come up, but any good situation the Orioles are in, I think he's in play as well. And really almost anybody in that lineup versus more. J.J. Hardy's pretty cheap. We know he has home run upside as well. So basically probably 1 through 7 that lineup's in play for me.
Los Angeles Dodgers at Pittsburgh. Jameson Taillon against Nick Chopish. I murder his name. I always did when we used to talk about him 2 years ago.
Yeah, Nick Tepish. Used to be Texas Ranger, picked up with the Dodgers here now. Another guy that's not a below average pitcher, but not somebody you have to pick on. Reverse splits kind of guy Tepish is. Not a guy you certainly want to roster by any means. There's no upside in rostering him. Jameson Taillon, he's pitched well. especially the one start here. But I don't know that I got to go here either. Dodgers are a tough team. They don't offer up a lot of strikeouts, although they have been underachieving offensively. Taillon's price across the industry is decent as well, but perhaps as a number 2, I don't hate it, but I'm not really dying to roster him tonight.
Yeah, this is, I hate to say it, this is a game that, really looks like a stay away game. The only interest that I have on Taillon is he's 14-8 over on Fantasy Draft. I have some interest there because the Dodgers they're a hot and cold offense, but as much as it pains me to say this, with Yasiel Puig being back in that lineup, he brings some energy to the lineup. Now, I can't stand him. I think he's awful for baseball, but he does bring some energy to the lineup. Will that help them? We'll see.
Yeah, I had a couple hits in the last game as well, so it can't hurt them. I mean, Puig's still going to be better than anybody else they can plug in there. For me, I don't see the strikeout upside here. I still wonder how many pitches he's going to throw. They're going to let him go, deep in the game. He only went 4 innings last time, and that was most of the result of the Cubs getting to him here. But he does have a strikeout upside there, but I think it's limited versus the Dodgers in this matchup. So, I could see 5 or 6 decent innings, perhaps a win, but I think the strikeouts are around 4 or 5 in that case as well. So, he's still moderately priced. So I don't hate it, like I said, as a number 2. I just think his upside is limited tonight, and there's better places to go.
Looking at the bats in this game, certainly Marte is still dealing with a little bit of a foot issue, missed Thursday's game. It'd be interesting to see if he's back in the lineup. If he's out, Matt Joyce will probably slide into that 5 spot. He might be a good value play here. I'm really not crazy about the Pirates' bats.
No, neither am I. And they've been cold recently. I mean, obviously, anytime you get an average righty or below average righty, which Nick Tepesch is, John Jaso, Matt Joyce, and Gregory Polanco, of course, are in play. But as I mentioned, he's been a severe reverse splits kind of pitcher, putting, McCutchen and Gung and Marte in play as well. But, he's not really a gas can, I guess, for lack of a better term here. So with the Pirates being cold, big ballpark there, and Tepesch just being slightly below average, I don't know that I'm going to have a whole lot of exposure to this game.
Yeah, looking at his, career numbers, pretty neutral. 338 WOBA to lefties, 333 WOBA to righties. Pretty neutral. In 2014, got hit a little bit more by righties. I'm just not too crazy here. Kang, one guy that I might look at as a tournament play. I'd like his upside, but I'm just not going crazy. I feel like this is a game that I can stay away.
Yeah, barring any changes for me, and I'm a guy who plays a ton of cash games and a lot of GPPs, as you know, barring anything changing, I don't think I'm going to have exposure to either of these teams or pitchers in much of anything right now. That's the game plan anyway.
Chicago Cubs, Miami Marlins, Kyle Hendricks against Tom Kohler. Both these pitchers have, in their own way, pitched decent this season. Any interest here in Hendricks or Kohler?
Not really. Again, Hendricks obviously has pitched really well. Decent strikeout rate, terrific ground ball rate, really limiting the damage there. But Miami, again, not a fun fantasy team to face. They don't strike out a lot. Ozuna's swinging a hot bat. Stanton's starting to wake up. You never know what deep Hendricks is going to go and what Joe Maddon is going to do in a game situation. It's frustrating to own him, and his price has come up quite a bit because he has pitched well. So for me, I don't have to have Hendricks either. I don't hate him. I just don't love him in this spot. I think he's a little pricey. And Tom Kohler, just an average pitcher, not a guy that's going to give up a lot of runs. Never a guy that generally throws, a gem. So not a guy I'm looking to roster here either. Hendricks is a guy that I think's in play, but with this high price, maybe a number 2 is a cash game option perhaps, but certainly not a guy I'm using on a one-pitcher site.
Yeah, the only reason I like Kohler on Fantasy Draft, all but 2 starts this season, he's put up double-digit fantasy points. It's not always the prettiest thing, and his last 3 starts he's actually pitched really well in, but Minnesota, at San Diego, and at home against Colorado. So not the most 3 potent offenses like the Cubs. I feel like you can definitely stay away from Kohler in this matchup. I'm going to talk about him in matchups this season. Hendricks, I always worry about his pitch count. If I knew Hendricks was going to go out and throw 105 pitches a game, I would play him every time he takes the hill because, like you said, not only does he have decent strikeout upside, the guy just doesn't get hit hard because of his massive ground ball rate, and he gets a ballpark bump here going to Miami.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'd have no issue with that. But we also know it could be the fifth inning in a 2-2 game, and they could pinch hit from him and ruin his entire night. So on a 15-game slate where he's not priced all that cheap across the industry, we have so many options. I think he's an easy fade in cash just because it's risky. Again, I don't hate it as a number two. If it works for you, I'm okay with it. But it's a little risky for me. Certainly not a guy I want to use in cash as number one. And, of course, his upside is limited and not much of a GPP option either.
Looking at bats in this game, do we want to target some Cubs hitters here against Kohler?
Yeah, you know what? He's actually been pretty bad versus lefties this year. In his career in general, he's a neutral splits kind of guy. But lefties have hit him pretty hard this year, and the Cubs are a pretty good offense. The ballpark's not great, which means we should get the Cubbies on their own today. So I think they can make for a sneaky stack. Jason Hayward, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist even. And, of course, Wilson Contreras continues to hit the young catcher there. He's reasonably priced across the industry. Very cheap on some sites there, too. So I think all those guys are fair game in any format.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm not going to go out of my way to pick on Hendricks here. Stanton is still 3,300, Ozuna 3,300. One-off tournament plays, I don't mind either one of those guys.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, Stanton, we know how good he can be. He's always capable of a multi-homer game regardless of the pitcher. It's more about Stanton being right than it is about the pitcher he's facing. Although, like we said, Hendricks a terrific ground ball right here. He's a tough guy to get on top of that pitch. He generally roll over all of his pitches. It's been described as hitting a bowling ball, basically, when you face Hendricks because you just can't seem to drive that ball off him. Heavy pitch that generates all the grounders. So, Miami could make for the ultra contrarian sneaky stack. If you're that guy that likes to throw $2, $5 entries and stack teams nobody's on, Miami's not a bad option there because the swing of the bat's pretty good. But to be honest with you, I have zero interest in picking on Hendricks.
All right, San Diego at Cincinnati taking on the Reds. Cody Reed and Colin Ray. Man, what a barn burner type game we have here. Reed, not bad in his first start. I think we can give him that. It was even, at Houston, which is not the easiest environment to go on. The problem is here with Reed is when San Diego is decent is against left-handed pitching. We know Matt Kemp is just crushing lefties this year. Will Myers, they can go a little right-handed heavy here. Do you have any interest in Cody Reed against the Padres?
You know what? I don't mind it because Cody Reed, one of the top prospects from the Cincy organization, came over in that Johnny Cueto deal. He does have strikeout upside. He's a pretty good pitcher. The Padres are a bad team, and they will strike out. So because he's so cheap across the industry, on a night like tonight where there's so many bats in so many good places, I don't hate the idea in a GPP using him, especially as a number two. Although, like you said, though, the Padres, if they're going to do anything, they're going to hit lefty, especially in that Great American Small Park there. And Myers and Kemp, and, of course, Derek Norris also in the bat's pretty good. So I'm not in love with it, but a lot of guys don't realize that Reed is a prospect. He does have strikeout upside, and he's handled righties quite well in minor leagues so far in his career. So I think he is a decent option there, but, of course, it's always risky.
Yeah, I think it's definitely risky. We've seen it in Houston. He gave up 4 earned runs in that game. He gave up 2 home runs. Probably not as worried here against the Padres, but, man, Matt Kemp, over 370 ISO against left-handed pitching this season. He looks healthy. Those numbers are crazy. We have no interest in Colin Ray, right?
Yeah, we can't start Colin Ray. We can pick on Colin Ray. Not a gas can either by any means, but a guy we can pick on, but we're not rostering him.
All right, let's pick on him here. We'll start with the home team on this one. Who do you like for the Reds?
Well, if Joey Votto gets back to the lineup, obviously he's a great cash game option in that ballpark versus a righty. Jay Bruce, again, has the home run upside in your GPPs. And Adam Duvall is the guy that's put up some massive power numbers. I think he did his 21st home run today, doing most of that damage against right-handed pitching, too. Again, the ballpark is fantastic here. Both of these bullpens are brutal as well. We have to keep in mind for that. So I like those 3 guys for Cincy. I think they make a great mini stack in tournaments.
Yeah, I can get behind all those guys and just kind of wait and see what the lineup looks like. Every once in a while, we'll get a rare Billy Hamilton sighting up towards the top of the lineup. I always like him when he's hitting up towards the top. Now, looking at the Padres, I told you who I like. I love Matt Kemp here, one of my top overall plays. I like Will Myers a lot. And Derek Norris, where you want to just take a catcher where you have a pretty solid value.
Yeah, I'm probably going to roster Cody Reed a few places just to load up with some bats. I'm also going to stack against him with the guys you mentioned, Myers, Norris, Kemp. You could also go Melvin Upton Jr. is hitting the ball better, Solarte is another guy that's these guys are fairly cheap if you want to go with a 4-man stack or even a 5-man on some sites. So doing a little both there. I mean, even a double stack in this game. Now the batters aren't all that expensive in some cases, so you might be able to do a double stack and still get some pretty good pitching here.
I did it on, Wednesday or Thursday night. I played Adam Rosales. I always like him against lefties as just a punt play. It didn't pan out to me until he hit a double and scored a run in the 9th inning. So sometimes it comes through for you like that. I don't mind him. I think he's a good punt play, especially on fantasy draft where he's 5,200. And you get all those, options with infield and outfield. I don't mind him there. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for this game, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on Rosales. So if he makes the lineup, he's a great value option the way he hits lefties.
Cleveland at Detroit, Danny Salazar, Jordan Zimmerman. Finally some decent pitchers here. Not the two best offenses to target, but what's your thoughts here on Salazar and Zimmerman?
Yeah, I love Danny Salazar. I'm a big fan of his. He's very quietly having a dominant season for Cleveland this season so far. Big-time ground ball rate, huge strikeout rate. And facing the Tigers team that is a good offense, but they can also strike it with the best of them. And they have a big hole in that lineup without JD Martinez. So really like Salazar. I think he's a better number 2 or GPP option with that double-digit K potential. On the flip side, Zimmerman's a guy that I never really roster, nor do I really pick on him. I tend to eliminate the bats against him because he's a quality pitcher. Another guy generates a lot of ground balls, doesn't get beat up a lot, but doesn't have the K upside to warrant this heavy price that seems to follow him. So for me, Zimmerman's always just a fade across the board, but I really like the potential for Salazar tonight.
Yeah, and I like the option for Salazar to get the win here. We've seen it in 2 of the last 3 games. And really, since, May started, we've seen Zimmerman start to regress. We knew that the numbers that he was putting up in April just weren't going to sustain. And, looking at this matchup here for Zimmerman, I'm just going to continue to play the Sierra game with Zimmerman. The Sierra is over a point higher than the ERA. I just continue to, think that he's going to regress. The swinging strike rate is down. The contact rate is up. I'm not going to stack Cleveland in this game, but if you want an ultra-contrarian stack, I don't mind Cleveland here.
Yeah, I've used them quite a bit this season. More often than not, I haven't been successful with it, but I've gone a lot of times with a 3-man stack in Cleveland, being Kipnis, Santana, and Lindor. That's the way I would go, a mini stack if you're looking to go that route. But again, Zimmerman usually pitches well enough that he doesn't really get beat up. And, however, that Detroit bullpen's pretty bad as well. So if he leaves the game giving up 4 runs in the 6th, those Cleveland bats can still keep pounding that bad Tigers bullpen. So not a bad ultra-contrarian stack as well.
Yeah, I don't hate that. You mentioned Salazar. I like Salazar as well. Not the best matchup in the world against Detroit, but a matchup that I think he'll excel in. I'm not going to take Detroit bats here against him. I think I'm very comfortable in saying that there's better options on a 15-game slate.
Oh, yeah, way better options. I have no interest in Detroit again. If you're that guy that loves to play teams nobody's on that have upside, Detroit has home run upside. But in this matchup, I won't be rostering any Tigers in any format.
I will throw one name at you here just because his price is so cheap still. $4,200 on FanDuel, $4,000 on Fantasy Draft. Steven Moya, will he pique your interest at all?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there. I think there'll be better, value plays in better spots. I get it. The kid's got a ton of power. He's a great big boy. Hits the ball hard. The splits are in his favor here. But it's not for me, and really Salazar hasn't been very. It's been very effective, actually. I was going to say in the home run department here. So I don't think I'll be rostering, but there is some merit to it. I get it. I get where you're coming from here, but only 6 home runs allowed all season from Salazar. I just don't think any Tiger really gets to him.
All right, New York Mets at Atlanta Braves, hot Atlanta, and that seems to be the thing that we're going to talk about here a lot in June. Steven Matz, Aaron Blair. Steven Matz. Let's talk about him. He's coming into this game. He's dealing with a little bit of an elbow injury. They're going to watch him closely. Honestly, for me, I'm just going to stay away. I want nothing to do. If he gets any kind of anything going on with that elbow, I feel like, they'll pull him, and I don't care. I don't think they care when it happens.
Yeah, I think it's a complete stay away in cash, 100%. In GPPs, it's interesting, though, because he went through this early in the season where he threw a bullpen and felt fine. They talked about a pitch count. And he was facing, I want to say, Milwaukee. and he was very, very underwhelming in tournaments. He went out and had an outstanding game, just threw a gem, and I didn't have any exposure to him. I thought, man, there's a guy that has that kind of upside that can go off. And this is the same situation again. And he's really expensive now, too, which also should keep his ownership down. He just went against the Atlanta Braves last time out, and it's a team that's not striking out a whole lot. And he struck out 7 in 6 innings on way to a pretty good performance there. So we know the Braves are awful. We know they don't hit left-handed pitching. We also know they don't offer up a lot of strikeouts, but they do offer up more strikeouts versus a southpaw. So in a GPP as a number 2, as a one-off, I kind of like Matz because you get the low ownership. The win should be there, and if the elbow holds up, I expect him to go 6 or 7 innings with a K per inning. So it's interesting, but like you said, it's too risky in cash, maybe also too risky in a high dollar GBP. But if you're playing some of these low dollar ones, I think he's worth the roll of the dice.
Yeah, I guess I don't hate that call because if he does go out and pitch well, the Braves, when they do struggle, it is usually against lefties. Matz has shown a lot of promise this season. And even though the Mets are dealing with a ton of injuries, they should be able to score runs here against Aaron Blair, who he really struggles with lefties and righties. It's going to be hot in Atlanta. The ball's going to be flying. Kind of like some Mets bats, but who do we take here for this just watered-down lineup?
Yeah, it's pretty depleted right now, but as you mentioned, Aaron Blair has been really, really bad. This is a kid that might have a bright future. He's not Major League ready yet, but I guess the Braves are just going to feed him the wolves here and let him figure it out at the Major League level. So, Cespedes is always a guy that's in play, even though he's a right-handed batter. I love his upside here versus Blair. And again, Atlanta's another bullpen that we can pick on. And of course, Granderson's hitting the ball well. And Neil Walker, I guess, becomes that third guy like. Even as Drupal Cabrera back-to-back games with home runs. So I guess he's been playing. He's been hitting 2 in that lap. So I don't hate that. Normally we'd be looking at Conforto here, Steve, but I'm a big fan. But he's been so bad that you wonder if he's healthy, what's going on. He's been batting low in the order there. So I think the top 4, we're likely going to see Granderson, Cabrera, Cespedes, and Walker. And I think that top 4 is in play for both cash and GPPs tonight.
Yeah, Cespedes dealing with the wrist and Conforto dealing with the risk. I think I'm staying away from those 2 guys. I like Neil Walker and Asdrubal Cabrera. Don't mind Granderson in a tournament, but my main focus here is going to be Neil Walker. I think he's in a really good spot. Second base, only 3,400 on FanDuel, just cheap enough where you can play him in cash and tournaments and not really lose a lot at second base.
Yeah, as far as the wrist thing goes, I am worried about Conforto. He did hit a home run there in his last 3 games, but he just hasn't looked right at the plate. Looks like he's off. As far as Cespedes goes, though, he played the last couple games, 4 hits, a double, and a homer. He seems to be fine, although he's kind of playing through that, so I'm less concerned about Cespedes, although there is a concern there. But I got to ask you, we haven't got the whole slate yet, and I'm sure you've had a quick look at it. I'm curious, so I'll ask you now. Aside from Coors Field, which is always popular, are the Mets in the next best spot just because they're facing Aaron Blair, or are they just a tough team for you to roster because they're healthy?
The health issues definitely worry me. I think when we get to the Coors game, we'll talk about trying to get as many of those guys in as you can, but I like the game in Cincinnati. I feel like we can get some good value in that game. We talked about that game. I don't mind the Mets, but Cespedes missed, yesterday's game and today's game. I'm really worried about the wrist injury.
Yeah, well, no, he played. He played against Kansas City on
the 22nd, which was Wednesday.
Yeah, so he did play.
That's when he got hurt.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, my bad then. Okay, so yeah, I guess we're gonna wait to hear on Cespedes there, but there are a few value bets too that may be worth considering, especially if Cespedes is out. James Loney, I'm not a huge fan, and Kelly Johnson again, not a huge fan of either of these guys, but Johnson's got home run upside. James Loney can get you a couple of hits. They're dirt cheap. If you're trying to find a way to roster aces and get Coors in there, and then look for that dirt cheap value in the best spot, the Mets present that. Aaron Blair has been awful. The bullpen's not good. They have the splits in their favor. So if you end up going to a Kelly Johnson or James Loney in the situation where, again, you're paying up for aces and you're rostering Coors and you have to punt, I don't think they're awful tonight.
Looking at, the Braves offense here, is there anything that stands out to you here against Mets?
Not really. If you were dying to look for somebody to take, I guess Frenchie's in play perhaps there. Jeff Francoeur, he's always hit lefties pretty well. He's dirt cheap. He's got that punt homer upside, but I'm not looking to pick on Mats. Like I said, he's a guy that I'm certainly more interested in rostering than picking on, even though he has that elbow issue.
The one guy that I think that I would play against him is Adonis Garcia. I might even take Tyler Flowers as a punt catcher. I don't mind those two guys. Super cheap, hot game against a guy that dealing with a little bit of elbow. Don't mind it. Boston at Texas, Nick Martinez, David Price. David Price, does he pique your interest here at Texas against the Rangers?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, another park where it's going to be, maybe 90 degrees, great hitters park. Texas, a very deep lineup. They've hit lefties really well. I'm not saying they beat up on Price, but I just don't see the upside here. And Texas doesn't strike out either. So for me to pay that price, no pun intended, to pay up for him tonight, I don't see the upside here. I think Texas does score a few runs off of him, and I don't see him striking out double digits in batters either. So for me, complete fade everywhere on David Price tonight.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Texas not a team we typically want to pick on. They're record-wise one of the best teams in baseball this year. It's still David Price. If I'm rolling out 10 tournament teams, I think that I would have Price on one, maybe two teams.
And normally I would say yes to that. Here's the reason why I don't. In his price range, for the most part, he's in with Scherzer or close to him. And I feel like Scherzer has a way better matchup, so I'm going to pay up to get him. There are other pitchers like Salazar and Matz that are cheaper than Price most places, and those guys to me have bigger and better upside, more potential for the win. So because he's kind of surrounded, that's why I'm going that route. Not to mention that if I'm going the route of GPP and I don't love Price, why not go way down to somebody I like in that same, maybe I like him just as much as David Price, but he's a lot cheaper, and I can get those big bats at Coors Field in there. So on a night without Coors, I might be more interested because we know his upside. But on a night where I either want to pay up for Scherzer or go down to get the bats, I think that's the biggest thing why I'm fading David Price tonight. But again, mostly that Texas lineup just does not offer up a lot of fantasy goodness for a pitcher.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I think you made my point for me. Nobody's going to play Price in a tournament, and if he gives us that 50-plus point game, I'll be way in front of the field if Scherzer struggles. So I don't know, man. I have some interest in Price in tournaments. I like the chances for him to get a win. If Boston can't hit Nick Martinez, Boston's in trouble.
Yes, I see your point there, and they're certainly going to hit Nick Martinez, who has been below average in the minors and the majors when he's pitched here too. Another guy that maybe becomes the number 5 starter at best in this league. Ballpark, most potent offense in all of baseball. Man, you got to love all of those Red Sox tonight.
All of them, indeed. And let's talk Red Sox here, the visiting team at Texas. Nick Martinez, when he struggles, seems to be a little bit of a reverse splits guy. It's still a small sample size of a couple years, but from what we're seeing so far in this guy's young career is he's struggling with the reverse splits and we're struggling with righties. The problem is right now, 10:30 at night, the night before, we got a 14-mile-an-hour wind blowing in from right field, which is going to limit some of the power of Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, some of these righties that we want to target.
Yeah, I guess 14 is not enough to scare me off, though. It's going to be hot out there, so the ball's going to carry. I'm not too worried about it. Like you said, as a reverse splits guy, I think that puts all the bats in play. Certainly wouldn't be afraid to start Big Poppy there or Shaw even or Bradley with the splits in their favor as well. So it's all the Red Sox. See, the problem is they're so expensive. The lineup is so deep. It's hard to kind of guess at who to pick in your cash games. It's a better stack option for me, the Red Sox are tonight. I think they're going to go on their own too with Coors Field being in play, but there's such a hard team to fit everybody in that you kind of have to stack them multiple times if you're on them. But this is a night, in my opinion, Stevie, where you should be stacking the Red Sox multiple ways, hoping to hit the right combination because I think they score runs, and I'm not worried about that slight wind blowing in.
All right. I like it. You asked me a little while ago who's my favorite non-core stack. It has to be the Red Sox.
Yeah, that obviously makes sense. Now, I'm just thinking of a team where we can kind of afford to pick up 2 or 3 players in cash, perhaps. Boston, that makes them a tough team. I'd like to roster Red Sox every night. How could you not, start your roster off with Betts, Bogaerts, and David Ortiz every night? I think you'd be in pretty good shape, but generally you can only afford one of them if you're paying up for pitching.
I think you can play Hanley in cash on FanDuel. Only 3,100. He's been hitting the ball a lot better. Visiting team, good chance to get 4 at bats here.
Yeah, don't hate it. Can't get on the Hanley train, man. I just can't do it. It's been a lot of situations all year where he's been in good shape, and I've stacked the Red Sox a ton. And again, it's multiple ways. If I decide I'm going with the Red Sox, I stack them multiple ways because it's so hard to get the right combination. And I rarely ever touch Hanley Ramirez. I just feel like there's always better options at first base, despite the fact that he's cheap. Like I said, on FanDuel, 3.1's a great price here. I can get on board with him in cash games and GPPs. I just never seem to roster him.
Fair points. I want no Texas bats here against Price outside of Beltre.
You know what? I'm not interested in Beltre. I was talking to Dean about that the other night. I think he's declining big time. Lost a lot of pull power and bat speed. I'm not on Beltre at all here. I'm not looking to roster a whole lot of bats, but Ian Desmond, probably the guy that I'm interested in most. He has been murdering southpaws this season, put up some monster numbers. Him and even Ryan Rua, of course, is a notorious lefty killer as well. Don't like the fact that his salary has kind of gone through the roof after a few good games, but I give both of them the edge over Beltre right now. But Desmond's the one guy that I thought would be a nice sneaky one-off. If you're looking to have that guy that kind of a big game that nobody's on, I think Desmond might be that guy tonight.
I like that call. Rua, if you want to play him anywhere fantasy draft, he's only 6,600 over there. That's cheap enough where I would roster him. FanDuel, I'm not paying 3,400 for him. Sorry, not going to happen.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Toronto at Chicago, taking on the White Sox. Aaron Sanchez, Carlos Rendon. You wanted to talk about an offense. How about your Blue Jays here in this matchup?
I don't mind it. Rodon's a pretty good pitcher. He has struggled versus righties, which is normal for a southpaw. Donaldson's probably your best bet here if you're going to pick on Rodon with some Jays. Not in love with the Jays in a stack tonight, though. Encarnacion swinging a hot bat. Again, a guy you want to ride when he's hot, but not a lefty masher by any means. Batista's on the DL. I'm not a huge fan of Russell Martin. So to me, it leaves Donaldson as a real nice one-off that I'd like to get some exposure to. And you stack on one team and then throwing a Donaldson there. I like that idea. But at the moment, I'm not in love with the Toronto stack. And, of course, I'm not going to roster Rendon either.
Aaron Sanchez on the other side of the hill here. Any interest in this guy who just continues to get a massive ground ball rate?
Yeah, I'm in love with Aaron Sanchez. Obviously, being just north of Toronto here, I watch him pitch a ton, and just nasty. Fastball that moves all over the place. And again, like the Cal Hendricks description, it's like hitting a bowling ball trying to drive the ball off him because of that ground ball rate. His curveball gets better every game. The strikeouts are higher than we expected going into the season. Not elite by any means, but they're there. So I love the kid, but this is not the best matchup. The White Sox make a lot of contact. They don't strike out a ton. It's a hitter's ballpark. I think Sanchez pitches well. I think he throws a quality start. But I'm not going to get exposure to him tonight because he's pricey across the industry, and I just don't see the upside here. I think he's a better real-life pitcher than a fantasy pitcher at this point.
I like his chances to pick up a win. Don't mind him in tournaments on FanDuel where the win is just so important. I think he's in a spot where he can pitch 7 innings, limit the damage here against the White Sox, get some run support from his offense, pick up the win, which – hey, maybe 5 guys are going to go that deep into a game and pick up a win on the slate. So don't mind Donaldson. It'll be interesting to see if we have any other information come out about his stiff neck issues from Wednesday. He played in that game. I expect him to play here. E5, I know it drives you crazy, so I say it anyway. Edwin, just a guy that we possibly could look at, but 4,400 on FanDuel just seems a lot for him.
Yeah, and like I said, when he's hot, you're right. He's certainly been hot. Cooled off a little bit recently, but not a lefty masher per se. So Donaldson gets the edge there. A guy that never gets any looks either. Justin Smoke. If you're trying to do a J stack and you can't afford Edwin for some reason, you could go down to a Smoke. Although I prefer him facing a righty. But in general, I think the Jays are a little overrated going into this game tonight because Rodon's a pretty good pitcher, and missing Batista in that lineup takes away from some of their southpaw thump there. But I think the Jays find a way to get the win for sure. And I don't hate the idea using Sanchez in the GPP here. I feel like the White Sox are one of those teams that just limit any pitcher upside.
Yeah, the one thing though, you keep mentioning Rendon's a decent pitcher, which I don't disagree, but the walk rate against righties is the second best on the slate of all the guys that we have pitching today. And you got a right-handed heavy Blue Jays team. Yeah, Batista's out, but you still have guys in here like Pilar. Travis has been hitting in that 2 spot. Tulowitzki's back. I don't think this is as much of a slam dunk, fade as what you're thinking it is.
No, I'm not saying it's a slam dunk fade. I'm just not as in love with the Blue Jays as maybe I was last year. When they're facing a guy that can give it up to righties in a hitter's park, you're all over the Jays. Whereas, I like Travis sitting in the leadoff spot if he's there. Pilar, he's hit or miss. Tulo's not the same guy. It's just not that same lineup where you think, oh, you got to get exposure to him tonight. Aside from Donaldson, I don't feel like I have to have a Pilar, a Martin, a Travis, or an Encarnacion tonight. And they're expensive. So that's kind of where I am. I'm okay with you stacking them. I think they do hit them. And again, the Jays win. I just don't think they put up, 8 or 9 runs. And I won't have a whole lot of exposure, to be honest, tonight.
Any White Sox bats that you like here against Sanchez?
No, I don't pick on Aaron Sanchez. Guys like him and Kyle Hendricks, they're just so tough to hit. When they get a couple of guys on, they can generate that ground ball for the double play. They don't give up a lot of home runs. There's just no upside to me here. I don't hate a one-off as a Todd Frazier who has that monster home run upside, and nobody will be on. So in that case, if you want to go contrarian with a guy like that, fine. But I won't be rostering any White Sox tonight.
Washington at Milwaukee, Max Scherzer, Zach Davies. I know it's a ballpark downgrade here for Max Scherzer, but you have to say that he's the best, probably the most solid pitcher on the slate, right?
Absolutely. In any format, he's the top dog tonight. I think he posts a monster score tonight. I mean, he's been outstanding in his last 4 games. The strikeout rate is through the roof. Righties don't stand a chance against him. And, of course, the Brewers are predominantly right-handed, and they strike up more than anybody else in baseball versus right-handed pitching. You can't get a better matchup aside from the ballpark. In your cash games, I think you're silly not to make him your anchor tonight, even with all the bats out there. Even as a one-pitcher side like FanDuel, I think he has to be the guy tonight if you're looking to lock it up, because this is one of those nights where he could go complete game shutout and strike out 15, and it wouldn't surprise me. So I think you're way behind in cash if you don't go Scherzer tonight. By far the best pitching option on the board.
I'm right there with you, man. Any interest in Zach Davies?
Man, he's been pitching really well, and they kept telling us, Milwaukee's organization and some of the guys that know the young, talented arms pretty good, that Davies will be better than this, and that he is a prospect, and he's got number 2, number 3 upside as far as the starting rotation goes. So nice to see him starting to pitch better, but Washington, another tough team to face. They're difficult. They don't give up a whole lot of strikeouts as well. The wind's probably not going to be there for him. I don't think we have to pick on Davies with the way he's pitching. He's kind of coming into his own here, and Washington, a difficult lot to figure out. Davies more of a reverse splits guy too, but I think Harper and Murphy are certainly in play here. But I don't think we can roster Davies tonight. There's just no upside, is there?
Yeah, no upside for me. Like I said, Scherzer getting a ballpark downgrade, but these hitters getting a ballpark upgrade. Murphy seems really cheap on FanDuel at 3,600. If one of these other guys like Steven Drew, Anthony Rendon, any of these guys, I think you can get on the cheap, I think are in play here against Davies.
Yeah, I don't hate any Washington bat in this ballpark. Again, nice ballpark. Milwaukee, not a great pen. And Davies has been great lately, but he's not elite by any means. And I think Washington with such a deep lineup, it's going to have guys on base. You're going to see RB opportunities and run scoring opportunities throughout this lineup here. So if you get a cheap guy in a good spot, I don't mind it. Michael Taylor, even another example, or Chris Heisey, any of these guys sitting at the top of that order. I don't hate the idea of that if you're working your way up to Scherzer and cash.
Yeah, because Davies still a guy that gives up a lot of hard contact. So
yeah, absolutely, I'm okay with it.
Now looking at the Milwaukee bats, any bats that you like here against Scherzer?
He has had home run problems, as we know. They've been limited a little bit along with the walks recently, which is good. He's been really dominant. But the home runs all come from lefties. As I said, the righties don't stand a chance. And the guys like Braun, LaCroix, Carter, those are the guys usually counting for the home runs. So I don't see VR or Jeanette really doing a whole lot of damage to worthy me taking those the one-off. So for me, I'm all about Scherzer and 0 Brewer bats.
Houston at Kansas City, and I'm with you there. I'm not taking any Brewers bats on a 15-game slate against Max Scherzer. Houston at Kansas City, Volquez against Keuchel. Supposed to be hot here in Kansas City, and we've seen some games over the last week or so hot in Kansas City end up really nice as in the scoring department. It's not the greatest ballpark, but when you start a game at 7 o'clock local time and it's 93 degrees, it's always a good game that you can target some hitters in. And looking at these pitchers, I'm not too scared off of these guys here.
Yeah, I mean, both these guys have pitched better recently. They haven't been great this season, but they're both capable of being pretty good, or very good, I should say. The ballpark in general, even though it's going to be hot there, is a tough hitter's park. Maybe it's the wrong move, but this is another one of those games, and I generally do this with games in Kansas City. I don't touch the pitchers. I'm not really on the hitters. 15-game slate, so many good options. It's a fade game for me, and I hope it doesn't hurt me.
Yeah, I'm not with you on this one. We see eye to eye all the time, and I'm a little opposite here. I'm going to take some bats in this game. Love Whit Merrifield. I love Lorenzo Cain in this game. Two guys that I think you can play a bunch here, and I'm not against looking at guys like Springer and Gaddis and even Rasmus here. If this game's going to be so hot and the ball's going to travel well, I think that helps out a lot with the ballpark. And I feel like you just said, not a lot of people on a 15-game slate are going to look at Kansas City and say, all right, let's get some of these guys in the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're going with it. You're not going to convince me to go there tonight. Again, the ballpark's tough. You mentioned the heat being there will certainly help, but these guys are not real hittable pitchers when they're on. Kansas City more likely to walk, single, and double you to death. So you need a lot of runs to kind of have a mini stack pay off there. And I just don't like the Astros in this park versus a tough right-handed pitcher, which Volquez can be. So, yeah, I understand what you're thinking. You know, you're going to get them at a low ownership, and there's potential there. But I don't know that we need to go there with 15 games other than to be ultra contrarian.
Well, contrarian's my middle name, so I'll roll it out there. I don't hate it. All right, Arizona, Colorado, the game that everybody wants us to talk about. Archie Bradley, Tyler Anderson. Anderson, not too bad here in his first couple starts. A lefty at Coors against a team that hits left-handed pitching really well, though. I feel like we can just kind of avoid these pitchers and just load up on all these bats.
Yeah, I think for the most part, even though I want to look at this game and go, okay, this might not be a 10-8 game. You said Bradley's got potential. He's been better. Tyler Anderson, a former third-round pick there. Finesse lefty for the Rockies here. He's pitched really well in the minors. He's pitched well in his first start here. Not a guy that gets hit hard, but again, you know, outside of Coors, these two pitchers might pitch okay. In Coors, it's so tough to not roster them, but not pick on them. So, you know, I'm not in love with this game like I normally would be with two potential gas cans out there, but you're still going to see runs here, I think, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. I think you just absolutely load up on every single Diamondbacks bat you can find. I love the Diamondbacks in this situation. Definitely the best stack on the board. Look at their numbers against lefties as a team this year. It's just insane. Second highest WRC plus, highest ISO, second highest hard contact rate at Coors Field. Man, and looking at the prices on some of these guys, you can get some of these guys at a discount. It's crazy. Peter O'Brien, 3,100 on FanDuel. Just lock him in.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that we should be stacking. I'm looking at this game going, okay, Tyler Anderson is a decent young arm, and Bradley also a decent young arm. So I'm just kind of saying these guys are not awful pitchers, but you throw that out the window when you're in Coors here. So obviously the two best stacks tonight are going to be in Colorado, and we're not considering rostering any of these pitchers by any means. But I guess I'm saying is I wouldn't be surprised if they both were not terrible, I guess is a better way to put it. You know, if they both leave that game and it's 4-3 in the fifth, that's kind of like, it wouldn't surprise you. But it's still a game you want to get exposure to tonight. You mentioned O'Brien there. Ricky Weeks Jr., Brendan Drury as well. If they get into the lineup, as many Tomas, all pretty cheap as far as the Arizona Diamondbacks go, or as cheap as they're going to see them. Guys like Goldschmidt, the Beef, Wellington, you love them, but it's going to be hard to get them in the lineup with a Scherzer and another pitcher. Or just as a one-off on FanDuel on one pitcher site, getting Scherzer in there too. Same with the Rockies. It's tough to get more than a couple unless you're going with cheap D-backs, I guess.
Just wait until you see the lineup. The Diamondbacks play around with their lineup so much. You really have to pay attention to the lineup. Looking at the Rockies side of things here, love Arenado and I love Story in this game. I like the righties a little bit more than I like the lefties. I feel like the lefties are definitely still in play, but I have a little bit more interest in the righties here.
Interesting. I think I'd be the opposite of that. I mean, I never disliked Arenado, one of the best hitters in baseball, obviously. But I like Story's upside, too. I think that if he's a little cheaper on the site you're on, good way to get exposure there. But I prefer Blackmon and Cargill in this matchup. What makes you like the righties versus Bradley more than the lefties?
Well, dating back to last year, Bradley has a 36% hard contact rate with a 340 or 337 WOBA to righties. So I have a lot of interest in these righties. Nice home run numbers here. The ground ball rate, a little worrisome, but still a 31% fly ball rate at cores against some of these big righties. I just like the righties here.
Yeah, I understand with the small sample size going with the reverse splits there. He has shown that, but man, I just think with the splits in their favor, Blackmon and Cargo, way to go, especially Blackmon. Look at this guy, 7 hits in his last 3 games, 3 home runs, and of course Cargo we know has that multi-home run upside as well. He's also got 7 hits his last 4 games. So I like the lefties a little better, but I understand why you're going with the righties.
Hey, I'm not going to talk you out of the lefties. I think they're definitely in play as well. I think Story, a guy that's hitting right-handed pitching with a ton of power this year, and Arenado, he hits everybody hard. So I think if you want to be different, I don't think you can 4-man stack this and have a decent pitcher. So if you want to be different, take the 2 righties instead of the 2 lefties.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
Yeah, we don't have to spend a lot of time. Oakland at Los Angeles taking on the Angels. Wade LeBlanc against Jared Weaver. Oh, buddy, a bunch of things we like here, right? We talked about it a little bit before we started. Wade LeBlanc, he hasn't pitched in the bigs since 2014, but when he did pitch in the bigs, this is a guy that didn't really get hit hard, sort of pitched towards contact, but never really got hit hard.
Yeah, more of a soft tossing lefty here. Hold on a second. Wasn't LeBlanc is pitching for Seattle though?
Oh, I'm joking. Oh, my bad. Surkamp.
Sorry, we're on Eric Surkamp and Jared Weaver. Threw me for a minute.
Sorry.
Yes.
I was trying to downgrade LeBlanc there. All right, Surkamp and Weaver. Man, woof.
Glad we caught that. Okay, so Eric Surkamp may be the worst pitcher in baseball. I mean, he's just been awful. We certainly don't want to roster him. You want to roster some righties against him. And Jared Weaver, they're kind of the same thing. He hasn't been awful, but he's not good. We've been picking on him with left-handed batters for years, and I think we continue to do that tonight.
Yeah, I like the bats in this game. The problem is it's in Los Angeles. You're not really targeting the bats here for home runs. Try to find some value to fit in lineups. Like the one guy that instantly stood out to me, if he's in the lineup, Jeffrey Marte's minimum salary. If he's in there, he usually bats in that 5 or 6 spot. Min salary third baseman. I'm all over that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And that's the problem. It's like, okay, we want to pick on these guys. Lefties versus Jared Weaver, let's say. Well, who are they? It's like, Coco Chris, Burns, Vogt? Yeah, not a whole lot of upside there. If Burns is cheap, hope for a couple of hits, maybe at a stolen base and a run. On the flip side, Surkamp's awful, but outside of Mike Trout, who could be highly on their own team as well, outside of Trout, where do you really want to go? You mentioned Marte. Calhoun's got the lefty-lefty. I don't really love that. Perhaps Albert Pujols there, but the Angels are a tough team to target right now. So even though Surkamp is so bad, I'm not even sure I'm going to stack against him, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, maybe CJ Cron, maybe, Escobar. I'm reaching here. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that if you're a multi-GPP player, you do want to get some exposure to a Janelle Escobar, Trout, Pujols, and a Marte perhaps in a 4-man stack, or if a 5-man stack allows you in the site you're playing on. Throwing a Calhoun's not an awful idea because Surkamp gives it up to everybody. But it's just the Angels are so bad. The ballpark's so tough. It's hard to get excited about it. But Surkamp is that bad. He is a legit gas can. So there is some merit to stacking these Angels in the GPP.
Yeah, Surkamp stinks. Anyway, let's move on to St. Louis at Seattle. Wade LeBlanc.
There you go. Finally, you're excited to talk about him.
Carlos Martinez on the other side of things here. I really haven't loved Carlos Martinez this year. Any interest for you?
Not really. He's a workhorse. He's been doing his thing off and on. He struggled a little bit in the middle of the season, but he's been good. Maybe not great, but good. Not a guy that I like to pick on. The Mariners are a good team versus right-handed pitching, but this is kind of one of those games again where I don't really want to get exposure to Martinez, nor do I want to pick on him. So I'm kind of fading them both here.
And Martinez has pitched well over his last 4 games. 3 of those 4 games, one earned run or less. The strikeouts not where I really want, Carlos Martinez strikeouts to be. And I feel like the Seattle lineup is a lot better than what they get credit for. I feel like this lineup is actually really solid.
Yeah, they are very solid. They don't offer up a lot of strikeouts. And looking back at Carlos Martinez, he's faced some tough teams recently that he's pitched well against. He didn't generate strikeouts because teams like the Giants and Texas and Pittsburgh don't strike out a lot. He did get 8 strikeouts in 8 innings versus Milwaukee. So maybe he's more matchup dependent now. Maybe he's the guy that wants to pitch to more contact. And again, this Seattle team is not the team that's going to strike out a whole lot. They got some pretty good thump, but ballpark in his favor as well. It just makes it kind of a fatal around for me.
I can get behind that. Bats in this game, anything really stand out to you on either side?
As you mentioned earlier, LeBlanc hasn't pitched since 2014. When he has pitched, he's been okay. Not getting hit real hard by righties, which is rare. Another soft tossing lefty with decent control. And the Cardinals, for as good as they are versus righties, are not that good versus lefties. So, if you're thinking about going Piscotty, Holiday, the silent H, Johnny Peralta, Diaz, I don't know if there's a whole lot of upside here in this ballpark with them. So, again, I think they make a sneaky stack here. LeBlanc, not great by any means, but I don't know if I'm going there again. It's Thursday night here, like you said, just after 11 o'clock Eastern, still trying to figure out the slate and where to go with it. And I'm definitely going to be attacking a lot of teams for stacks. So the Cardinals could sneak in there a couple times, but it's a like and not love situation, I think, with St. Louis tonight.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way here to fit in any of these teams in a stack, but I wouldn't tell you not to. I feel like that's how I'm going to approach it.
Yep, I'm completely on board with that.
Last game of the night, finally getting to it. We have Philadelphia at San Francisco. Zach Eflin against Jake Peavy. Peavy stinks, but Philadelphia stinks too.
Yeah, I mean, Peavy's actually been, call me crazy, but I actually really like Jake Peavy in the spot tonight. And at the moment, I think I'm going to roll him out in some GPP lineups. He's been pretty good in 4 of his last 5 starts. He's got 23 strikeouts compared to 5 walks, not getting hit as hard. The Phillies are ranked 29th in WOBA. They're dead last in WRC+. They're traveling on the road here. I think Peavy is a number 2 or is a one-pitcher set like FanDuel and a GPP where you're looking to load up in bats. I think he can go 6 or 7 innings, strike out 4 or 5, and get a win at his price. I kind of like it. Is that crazy or what?
Oh, Peavy's in my placeholder lineup on DraftKings and on Fantasy Draft.
Wow, well, there you go. So not so crazy after all. Maybe not as sneaky as I thought, but
I still think it'd be sneaky because everybody like us, Peavy stinks. We're not playing him because we think he's good. We're playing him because Philly stinks.
And Peavy's shown an ability to improve and learn how to pitch and realize he's not the same guy. So perhaps he's kind of, getting comfortable in pitching. He's certainly pitching better. The ballpark is the best pitching ballpark in the world. Yep. And, yeah, like you said, Philly stinks. Again, 29th in WOBA versus righties, dead last WRC+. I mean, everything says there's a quality start here. And I think at his price, that's worth rolling the dice on tonight.
Yeah, because the biggest issue with Peavy, especially this season, because his swinging strike rate is up and his contact rate's actually down, his biggest issue this year has been the hard contact. It's 37%. But looking at Philly going into San Francisco, getting a ballpark downgrade, where is the power really going to hurt you with Philadelphia? And that's kind of why I have some interest in Jake Peavy here.
Absolutely agree. I'm on board, and let's hope there's not a lot of other people other than those listening to this podcast Friday morning, of course, that they get on board with us. But I think he's a very solid 2. I don't even hate him as a number 2 pitcher in your cash games. If you go Scherzer and Peavy so you can load up on some bats, I think that's the way I'm going to go.
Might be what I have in my lineup right now. No. Anyway, Zach Eflin on the other side of things here. Very small sample size from this guy. We've only seen him 8 1/3. Minor league numbers, nothing to brag home about. 2015, the guy had a 12.5% strikeout rate in the minors. That's nothing to really worry about too much. This guy has a 40% hard contact rate. The swinging strike rate, it's only 6%. He's been a fly ball pitcher, which really doesn't hurt him here in San Francisco. I actually don't hate a giant stack, late night stack. Nobody's going to be on him. This pitcher doesn't look like anything that's going to scare me too much. And that's another reason that I don't mind Peavy. I love targeting pitchers that are going to be pitching with a lead.
Yeah, I could see Posey, Panic, Span, Belt, Crawford, all the lefties here. He's pitched well in the minors. He's got good control. He's not a guy that's going to be a gas can by any means. He could even be as high as a number 2, what they're saying here, 2 or 3 in the rotation. So I'm not dying to pick on him again with this ballpark and that offense, but I understand if you want to go, say you got Colorado and Arizona stacks everywhere and you want to throw Span, Panic, and Belt in there as 3 lefties in a late night stack. I can see that, but I expect this to be more like a 4-1 Giants win, 4-2 Giants win, something like that. So I probably won't have a whole lot of the Giants just because at some point you got to limit them. And I do think he's going to be a decent pitcher in his career. So I'm not really looking to pick on him.
All right, that's going to wrap it up here for this slate. Any thoughts before we move on to Home Run Derby?
I'm still worried about Coors Field. I guess my biggest thoughts are, do we have to have it, I guess? Obviously, we're dealing with 2 decent young pitchers, and that really doesn't matter for the most part in Coors. There should be runs there. But if you're going to roster a Scherzer and a Salazar, say, or if you're on FanDuel and there's only 1 pitcher, you're going to roster Scherzer. I'm wondering if you can, in cash games strictly, do we have to have Coors? That's my biggest concern tonight. Every time I say that, of course, I always come around and get some exposure to Coors, and it seems to work. So I guess I'll have to find a way. But it's tough to get 2 aces or 1 ace and Coors tonight, Stevie.
Yeah. No, I think it's actually not that hard, Pepsi. Like, playing around with Scherzer lineup on FanDuel, there's a couple punt plays that you can put in that I feel like you can still get decent exposure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going Goldschmidt, Arenado, Blackman, Cargo, yes, you can get – I guess the safest way is to go Story and then a few of these cheaper D-backs to get exposure and go to Scherzer, because I don't think we can miss out on Scherzer and cash tonight. No,
I think you have to have Scherzer on FanDuel, but like I mentioned, one of my favorite punt plays on the day, if he's in the lineup, is Jeffrey Marte. $2K minimum salary third baseman in a great matchup against an awful pitcher in a decent lineup spot. And Peter O'Brien, he's too cheap. Story's too cheap. I just feel like we can do it here.
Yeah, maybe I'll play around some more and see how it works. A little easier on the 2-pitcher side, I find, because, again, I don't mind Peavy. So going Scherzer and Peavy gives you some room to go up to these Coors bats.
Oh, we're going to regret that so much tomorrow night.
We very well could.
All right, let's play some Home Run Derby. You're my guest. I'll let you lead it off here.
Let's go with Adam Duvall.
And stay away from Coors. No Coors Field.
Adam Duvall is a guy that I love. Massive power this season, mostly versus righties. Back home at the Great American Small Park. Going to say Duvall goes deep off of Colin Ray.
And it's funny because my first one comes from that game as well, and it's Matt Kemp.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I'm going to go Neil Walker. Again, Aaron Blair has been a disaster. Lefties are hitting him well. Really like Neil Walker at his price point.
Man, you took my guy. You definitely took my guy. I had him written down. All right, let's see here. Threw me off. I'm going to go Hanley Ramirez.
All right, another guy that I really like. I don't know where he's going to hit in the order tonight with Machado expected back. He's been absolutely on fire with 4 or 5 multi-hit games in his last 6 here. Got double down potential, and that is the mouthwash, Mr. Jonathan Scope versus Matt Moore.
Scope, always a guy that I like to play. Nobody ever plays that guy. I'm going contrarian here, as you told me that I was for liking this game in general. I'm going against Dallas Keuchel here in Kansas City, and I'm going Lorenzo Cain.
Don't mind Cain. I mean, he's the one guy. I understand Whitfield as well, but Cain's the one guy that I don't mind here. He's always hammered lefties quite well, but that's a tough ballpark. We'll see.
We'll see how it plays out. At the end of the night, if you had to pick one pitcher not named Max Scherzer, David Price, Steven Matz, Danny Salazar to pick up a win, doesn't have to score the most fantasy points, who would it be?
I'm just eliminating those guys in my head right now.
I just taken out all the guys over 10K on FanDuel.
All right. I'm going to say that I'm going to throw a few names at you. I think Hendricks and Sanchez are both in play to get wins today, but I'm going to go back to Jake Peavy again. I think that I think he wins. I think San Francisco scores, and I think Peavy pitches decent against the bad Phillies team.
Yeah, you mentioned the guy that I liked here. I think Aaron Sanchez is in a great spot for a win tonight. I like him a lot. I think Peavy wins too. Oh, man. It's really come to us liking Jake Peavy.
I mean, if it's not now for Zach Peavy, for Jake Peavy, it's never. And it may be never again after tonight. That's just the way daily fantasy works. But, I mean, if you can't like him when he's pitching well, at home, on a great ballpark, weak lineup, I mean, this is the spot to take advantage of a guy like Peavy. Like I said, if it's not tonight, it's never.
I think I agree with you. If it's not tonight, it's never. If you can't beat Philadelphia at home, You can't be on my fantasy teams anymore. It's going to wrap it up here for us, Pepsi. Any final thoughts here? Anything that you'd like to say before we leave here?
Hey, it's a 15-game slate. It's a Friday night play. It's a blast to do it. GPPs, cash, you name it. Great tournaments over the map. I absolutely love Friday nights more than any other nights. I'm excited to get into this, and hopefully we can help you take down some money tonight.
Yeah, and if you're going to play, head on over to our sponsor site, Fantasy Draft. They have a $10,000 home run here tonight. 10 entry max. You don't have to play against a bunch of entries. It's only $25 to get in. If you haven't signed up yet, make sure you guys sign up using promo code Grinders. If you have any questions about Fantasy Draft or this slate, hit me up on Twitter. It's going to wrap it up here for me and Pepsi. We'll be back here on Monday. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you then.